you still, at the start of a project, feel any kind of fear or anything like that?
Just one of them I did.
Oh,
I did a
really?
portrait of Kim Jung Gi. That was an intense one. So yeah, we did the whole photo shoot, and then literally 4 days later, he died. So I was like, well, I'm not sure about this. Like, basically, just didn't do anything for 2 months, just thinking of whether I should even do it or not. And one of the photographs, he was pointing at the camera. For some reason, I was just like, oh man, it feels like he's pointing at me. The portrait's not about him. It's not about me. It's about society. It's like, it's our turn to pick up the brush. He's done his job.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know he's pointing at us saying like, hey, you do your job now.
Hello, and welcome to Pixel Peeping, the show where we take a closer look at an artwork from some of today's top digital artists. Today's episode, we're going to sit down and chat with Ian Spriggs, take a look at some of his files. Ian is a lead character modeler at Image Engine. He's worked on a ton of movies, but he's probably most known for his incredibly hyper-realistic digital portraits. In the art world, he's kind of known as the GOAT of realistic 3D portraits, that's not using a scan or anything. Some of his portraits are incredible. He's done, some of friends and family he's done himself, including one of the late, great Kim Jung Gi, which we get to talk a little bit about and some insights into his process. It's awesome to have an artist like him and of his caliber on here to ask questions. He's one of the few artists in this kind of space of 3D character modeling that's transcended into essentially a fine artist. His work's been in galleries all over the world. He gives talks at huge conventions in front of other artists and peers. And he has his own book that you can see beautiful prints, and he talks about his process. It's great to be able to talk to him, hear a little bit of, not only his process, but what goes into it, his thinking, and why he does the kind of artwork he does for pleasure and how that informs his own process. He's a true artist. And you'll see what I mean when we get to talk to him. Without any further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Ian Spriggs. All right. Hey, Ian, what's up? Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing this, dude. Really appreciate it. And I do want to just start out by saying like I said, I'm a big fan and you're just crazy sick at doing these portraits. And I think you stand out. Not only you exceptional quality, which I would love to get more into, but also you utilize these older classical Renaissance techniques for doing portraits, like utilizing composition and color and objects within the frame in ways that you don't see today as much, but then obviously merged together with this modern CG technique. So it just feels interesting and unique in this mashup of the old school portraiture in this new format. I just would love to hear you kind of describe your art style, what you're doing, and maybe the thing that drew you to it or what you think is most important about the specific nature of the things you do.
Yeah, so a little bit of history of me. I went to art school for 5 years, got my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, which I basically couldn't get a job out of. Was basically jobless after a while. So I went to the 3D school and took 1 year at Seneca 3D animation school, where I learned the 3D programs like Maya and all that. But because I have that art background, I was always inspired by the masters. I was always driven to them somehow. I did a lot of art history in school, and so I was always trying to research them and learn more about them. And so becoming more into a 3D artist, it's just even though it was new technologies, new ways of going forward, I was always kind of looking back still, because it's for me, the Renaissance and Baroque period is they've already mastered the high fidelity aesthetics of art, and it's we're just almost in a way just making lesser versions of what they've already accomplished. So the way I see it is rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, just kind of build on top of what has already been built. My style is kind of it's not something which I've created myself. I would say I'm standing on the back of all the generations before me, of them discovering things and how lighting works, how posing works. I'm just kind of taking their techniques of the things they've learned, and I'm trying to incorporate new technology into my 3D modeling, 3D rendering, and just adding my own twist on what they've already done. One of my styles is definitely taking what they've done, figuring out how to take it to the next step and push even further. And then I assume once next generation after me, it'll be nice if they could take my stuff and just build on top of that again as well.
Yeah, well, that's cool to hear you say it. It's exactly what it feels like. And again, different. I mean, I guess kind of silly, but I thought I had while you're describing it. It's almost like you're more similar to a portrait painter, in oil than a photographer, let's say. Does that make sense? Like,
Oh, so the way I kind of explain that to people, there's two ways of looking at it. There's photorealism and then there's hyperrealism. Photorealism is taking a photograph, copying it one to one, and you basically mimicked reality. And it's like you look at it, and you're like, I can't tell the difference between that being a photograph. It's just so realistic. Then there's hyperrealism, which is based on photorealism, but it goes to the next level. If you were to take a photo of the sunset with your phone and then showed somebody, they'll be like, that photo looks like garbage compared to the sunset in front of me. So what you do is you exaggerate the colors, you change things around, like you just bump up the saturation, like you modify it. So it's still based on reality, but the photo now looks more emotional. It feels like what you saw in reality. It's no longer a real photograph because you modified it, but the feeling you get is what you felt in the present moment. So with portraiture, what I do is the same thing. Like my goal is not photorealism. My goal is to capture that person's essence and make you really feel who that person really is. And so I would use things like exaggerating saturations, exaggerating a bit of poses, exaggerating the lighting, changing things just enough to amplify or exaggerate the personalities of those people. So it's kind of like, it is photorealistic, but it does branch off a bit into the hyperrealism.
I totally feel you about trying to make something that feels right and evokes it. That's so cool. Well, I guess kind of one of the basic questions is, I assume it takes a lot. It feels like it takes a lot of time, and usually you have the luxury of choosing your subject. So I'd love to know like what goes in there. Because to me, on my side, if I imagine it like I am with my own work, it's like a big commitment, you know? Like it's like you're gonna be in a serious relationship with this thing. So I wonder, how you choose your subjects, and then how long it would take to do one of your works.
So when I first did my very first portrait, I was at a company, Mr. X, which was a fantastic company. I loved working with it. But there was always the deadlines of like, hey, you got to get this character done by the end of the week. And then I went from like 1 week to 4 days to 3 days. And it's like the deadlines got faster and faster. And I was like, I was losing quality. And I was like, well, I know I can do better than this. So I decided to take a year off, take some time to it myself. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to do the most realistic character I can possibly do. What's the most available subjects who I can have access to 100% of the time? And I was like, well, it's me. I took a whole bunch of photo references, got all the skin details I needed. And I just spent I think it was 2.5 months just making my first self-portrait. And it was just about how realistic I could go, but being very true to myself. My first self-portrait's not about glorifying myself, making me look better than I really am. It was like my hair was messy, it was kind of slouched over. It was just be like, hey, that's an honest version of who I am.
Yeah.
And so that's my first self-portrait. And from that, it's spanned out to my family. My family was like subjects I had access to. I know them very well. So it was like representing them in the portrait was a little easier because I knew them so well. And then it just kind of went, it's like snowball effect to people I used to work with, close friends, people who inspired me. And it's like, it slowly became like the people who had most influence of my life. I was taking portraits of them.
Yeah.
And so when you see them, my portraits as a collection as a whole, you think of them as individual portraits, but as a whole, it's like basically you're seeing what my life is.
Yeah.
People who have influenced me in that time period.
Do you see it as a life work that you just, are going to continue on for as long as you can, and then have this big body of work that represents, your life and the people you met?
Yeah, absolutely. Because even now, I've actually revisited some portraits. I've done my self-portrait twice. I've done my brother's portrait twice, my mom's twice, my dad's. I already did my dad's once. So I've done a couple of people twice, and it's interesting to see how my style has changed, how they have changed. Yeah. It's just like that. You can tell like there's a story going on and things are just moving forward. But but I don't rush them. I'm not taking these portraits to try and just get them out and get like the likes. For me, it's just like I'm enjoying taking my time, making it look right. I don't post anything until I'm 100% happy with it. So usually it takes maybe between 150, 200 hours each portrait now.
See, it sounds silly to say. It feels like you are doing art. That sounds so dumb to say, but you know what I mean? That's, like you say, not for likes and not for a job and stuff. I wonder, like, how do you have a full-time job? Like, how are you working this in? Like, this is, like, as you say, 150, 200 hours.
Currently, I work for Unity, so I just do that full time right now. I take on a few freelance gigs as well here and there. But yeah, I kind of like the way I see employment is like I see it as like a trade-off. Like they pay me, I give them my time. What I'm really passionate about is myself, my portraits and like my
Great.
artwork. It's almost like I always find with the business side of things, they own it. Somebody else's direction, somebody else's vision, and you're just making their dreams come true, whoever it is you're working for. And so
Yeah.
I never feel that inspired as being saying like, hey, that's who I am. It's kind of like that's who they are, and I'm just helping them. So my own personal stuff, I always find time to do it. Like no matter how busy I am, I always find time to do it because that's what inspires me, and that's what I want to share in the world.
Do you ever still, at the start of a project, feel any kind of fear or anything like that?
Just one of them I did.
Oh,
I did a
really?
portrait of Kim Jung Gi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was an intense one because I met him at Trojan Horses a Unicorn, an event in Portugal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like brings artists all over the world together. We hang out, listen to each other talk, and just communicate. It's really just like a nice vibe. But I met him drawing on stage, and I just had a quick word with him after. I was like, "This is like, I love your work. You're such a huge inspiration. It's like, I'll absolutely love to do your portrait." And he got translated, and he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." We got together the next day, did the whole photo shoots. It was just like I was having fun, like just it was just super cool, relaxed atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we did the whole photo shoot, and then literally I think it was 4 days later he died.
Wow. I knew it was close, but yeah, wow.
Yeah,
That is
like 4 or 5 days. It was just like it was absolutely crazy, and I was just like, well, should I even
should you
like
even do it? Yeah.
yeah, like why do I deserve to be doing like the last portrait he'll like official portrait he'll have? So I was like, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about this. Like
Yeah.
I basically just didn't do anything for 2 months, just thinking of whether I should even do it or not. But then I kind of revisited some of the photographs, and one of the photographs, he was pointing at the camera, and for some reason I was just like, oh man, it's like it feels like he's pointing at me, and I kind of was thinking like maybe like that's his portrait. It wasn't the portrait's not about him. It's not about me. It's about us. It's like society is like it's our turn to like pick up the brush. It's like he's done his job.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know he's pointing at us saying like, hey, you do your job now. If that was his last message,
Yeah.
I can't not share that.
It needed some time and everything and do it delicately. And I think, you let it hit you to do it for the right reasons. I think it was beautiful when it came out, a good way to memorialize,
Hmm.
what he represented to
So
the art community. So did you feel that? So is that the feeling of like dread or pressure was in the interim before starting, or like when you start it, do you still ever have any doubts? Like, can you, like in this case, like, can you live up to it, or have you done it enough where you kind of trust the process?
yeah, I'll say so. I mean, maybe more at the beginning of my portraits, but I think over the years I just kind of like faded out that noise, and I just kind of just like even if I fail, it's like I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm just kind of doing it for the subject and myself, and it's like I just enjoy being in the presence of actually trying to learn who this human being is. I'm just doing my best to incorporate who they are. It's like for me, as long as they're happy, I'm like it makes me happy.
Great.
But I don't want to get to that point where I'm just like start questioning myself and like
Yeah.
yeah.
As you say, it's kind of a habit that or a routine now that you're just always going to have this. And I bet it kind of fuels your life in ways you don't get from work, kind of balances things out. That's how I feel with my own personal work. Do you find it easy now to slip into, as you say, like the joy of it? Like, is it now like a respite, like where you're looking forward to it, and it's like a hobby in a way where like you can sit down, work on your portrait, and you don't have those negative feelings or pressures. Like you're intentionally making it a safe space to enjoy yourself. Do you find that just happens automatically now because of how you've set it up?
No, I still got the negative parts of things. I mean, I faded out like the like not one. I'm not sure about doing it, but it's like as I'm doing it, I'm still like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I think it's just like everything is a roller coaster. Sometimes you have highs, sometimes you have lows. Like there's be times I'll be modeling a portrait and I have hands in them, and
Oh
like
yeah.
those hands are just terrible. So I just like weeks of work just delete them.
Oh
And
wow. And then start again.
no, I just like
Oh,
won't
just delete them.
have
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to solve that problem.
yeah. Being an artist is you have lots of ups and downs emotionally about things, but sure, you just gotta go with it. It's part of the journey.
It's part of the journey, yeah. So each it's good to know each portrait's still a journey. That's part of it, right? So okay, yeah. So you do use these you use computers and these modern techniques in these classical ways, but I think one of the interesting things is that you're doing a lot by hand in this like culture of making likenesses and stuff that people do. There's a lot of different techniques that you can utilize, photogrammetry, or you can use asset libraries or whatever to save some time and get to photorealistic results like quicker. At least in some of your portraits, you're choosing to not do that. You're choosing to do the long way around. I wonder if you could like tell me the kinds of things you're choosing to do that and why you do choose to do that, because it does seem like the craftsmanship and the labor that you are putting into your work is, to me, it's like kind of part of the artwork.
Might sound like I'm actually doing the long way, but I feel like I'm actually doing the faster way. Because it's like not using photogrammetry it's actually faster for me to model without using it, because each portrait is going to be posed in a certain way with a certain expression on it. If you're going to take a scan of somebody, they're going to be like very T-pose, right?
Yeah.
Take the scan of them, then you're going to have to clean it up, pose it, and then it's like you'll always get that reminiscence of like this pose. Whereas like even if you move it this way, you'll still like the gravity of the face might be up as if it was straight up. But if you put your head sideways, your gravity pulls your skin and like you get the weight here. It's like, and you might actually lose all that detail and all that information if you start going from a scan. So if you just go straight into like modeling from pose, it actually saves me time to actually get accurate likeness.
What about skin details or high frequency stuff? Do you reuse any of the work you do, or do you utilize any libraries or any assets there to help you with detailing?
Yeah, sometimes. So obviously texturing XYZ has been pretty good for a base pass. So I usually use that as a base pass to begin with, but I have created my own stencils to redo like places like the cheeks, the forehead, like the nose, the lips, because it's like detail on the neck. If you change someone's detail on the neck, you're not actually going to notice if the likeness is off. But if you change details in the here or something, right away you'd be like, oh, that don't actually match up with a real person, because you're very aware of like this part of the face.
Yeah.
So I usually try to match the pose to those areas.
Well, yeah. So while you're speaking, I was like, damn, you're doing likeness at the pore level, huh? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like everybody's pose is very, very different.
That's true, but I bet a lot of people don't do that. I'm sure some do, especially when likeness is like, you're trying to do the best. But because with XYZ, you can use not only like the high frequency stuff, but you can use pores too. And oftentimes I bet people like mix and match them, but that's cool to know. So these stencils though, are they like groups? Are they like one at a time? Because if you're matching pores, like you might even have to,
they're both. They're like, some of them are groups, and then some of them are just like individual pores. And then I've kind of separated them, so you've got more like noisy ones and then more clean, like smooth, like just like cloud things, and then I can add noise in them.
Cool. I mean, I don't know. Would you mind if we could jump in and like look at a file that you have, if you have one handy?
Yeah, I don't have all the pores all separated though, but
that's okay.
Let's see what we got here. So this is my latest portrait of
awesome
of Eddie.
This was super great, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, this is actually one of my more successful portraits, which is pretty cool.
I don't know, for some reason that confirms something. It's something I wanted to ask, is that, I don't know, this is like embarrassing sometimes to hear, but like I do think that you are one of the best, if not the best, at the likeness thing that we're doing. And I wonder if you feel like there's still room to go, like sometimes people that are, super into something, they see things that we wouldn't see. So to me, when I see this, I can't tell you why this felt like it was on another level. I just would love to hear you talking about those little tiny things that you're still improving. You still see room for improvement.
It's hard to put don't put that into words to say exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, I can look at this portrait and be like, yes, I know there's a next level to it. I know there's things I can improve. I think it's mostly expression, pose, and lighting is the thing I really need to focus on. Because to say exactly what that is, it's like each portrait is a little bit different, I'll say.
Yeah. Would it be fair that it's probably a combination of all the things, and that them just getting a little bit better? Because even though detail doesn't really, make it, I mean, it does in a way. They all play a role. But like, yeah, the things you mentioned weren't even like the detail of like the hand and the thumb and the cheek, which all look obviously super realistic and fantastic. But for me, the far side eye being in shadow is something that I don't think I would do immediately. It's something that, I think when I don't know, it takes confidence and everything, and it kind of in a way adds realism.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of having one eye.
Oh yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I know you've got two eyes, but I like you to focus on exactly what eye. So if you go through like all my portraits, there's always like one specific eye which you kind of look at more than the other. I guess I didn't do it so much on this one, but
the front ones, yeah.
Yeah, like on Andre's, like this one, front one, this guy, even though he's facing this one.
Yeah.
Even like my self-portrait, it's like you feel like it's more this like.
Yeah.
And so the reason I do this is because like with Rembrandt lighting, Rembrandt lighting is when you create that triangle on the side of the cheek.
Yeah.
That style of lighting gives you an eye to look at. So your eye, when you're looking at the portrait, your eye is not jumping back and forth, unaware of where you're supposed to be looking.
Okay.
Lighting style says, look at this eye. And so creating my portraits, I always try to control where you're supposed to be looking. And if you're looking, split your vision between two eyes, you're kind of like getting confused of where you're supposed to be looking. Whereas if you focus on one, like this is the eye that you look at, and you can capture that. There's like that connection. It's like a lot more gravity pulling you into that, and you get the connection a lot stronger.
And you get it immediately if you're designing that.
Mm-hmm.
So Mudbox, another silly question. I'm sure you've been asked a bunch of times, but since like ZBrush is the standard, software used for work like this, I know you've used Mudbox, and usually I just think like, hey, it's working, why change it? That's kind of my answer for these things. But I'd love to know like some things about Mudbox.
Basically this. So you can look through that camera is exactly the same as that camera.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can render something, right? And then like you're like, that it doesn't look good. So you go straight into Mudbox. You know exactly where to fix it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I fixed it. And then you go back into Maya, render it exactly one-to-one. Whereas in ZBrush, I find like you can't figure out exactly, like sometimes I'll be checking out the render, I'll be like, this pore needs fixing. Which one is that? And I can just go into the
wow.
And like
that's awesome.
I'm like, okay, it's like this pore or something. And
whoa. Cool. Yeah, I do know that ZBrush does have real cameras now, but like specifically what you just did, like enlarging it, I would not know how to do that. And again, love hearing that example is probably real, that you're like, this pore is is off, dude. That's hilarious. So yeah, you just mentioned about like doing your work to camera and also focusing on one eye. Is there an asymmetrical amount of your time and energy spent on like the focal point? Are you spending less time on the far eye? Are you, I would assume if you're doing it, if you're curating it. I mean, we're still seeing detail over here, so.
Zero effort on that.
Okay, cool.
A lot more effort on that.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I probably wouldn't tell people too often, but yeah, it's like you're not going to see it. I usually make it look good from like there to like there.
Yeah, and you're doing like these slight turntables now, which is great to see.
But yeah, notice how you don't see the other ear.
yeah.
Make sure.
Ooh. I have this like suspicion, and again, it doesn't matter. I just think it's kind of interesting. Because again, I think you're doing it all for the right reasons, and who cares? But to me, when I look at your work, and that was sick at the end, I super appreciate it, and I feel, even though I don't know in detail, I feel like I know a little bit about what goes into it, since I do CG art and stuff. I have the suspicion that people see your work, it's almost like so good, and it blends in with these other things like photographs and stuff, that they don't really get to appreciate it to the same level, if that makes sense. I don't know if you ever had that thought, but it makes me wonder, like, do regular people even kind of know what you're doing?
Not really. No, not really. It's funny because I've discovered recently, when I post on Instagram, I have to post like the gray shader model next to the render, and that will get more likes than if I just post the render.
Absolutely. That's what made me think about these, is that it's something I like from like that NFT boom. I actually just really liked the little bouncy bounce turntable thing that people did, and I started trying to do that in my work because I thought, we are making 3D models. It's like way cooler to see them move. So like, just like the video you showed right here, that's a big difference. You've already done all this amazing work, and just this little extra thing in the showcase. Yeah, I think it makes it inherently something else to regular people to see this. Like, there's it's very believable, but then it has this very CG thing about it, and you're like, whoa, like it's what separates it from a photograph, obviously, right? This frozen moment in time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like doing stuff like this, it just proves that it's 3D. So
Exactly.
like a few times I'll show like images like this now just to show them side by side and be like, yes, this is a
Yeah.
3D model. I don't want to like it really shouldn't have to be a part of the artwork. Like if
Yeah.
a painting never says, hey, by the way, I'm a painting. Or a sculpture's never like, hey, I'm a sculpture. But in the 3D is like the first medium we've ever had ever before where we actually have to prove what the medium is and how something's built
Yeah.
in order to appreciate it. You should technically just be able to appreciate it without seeing the work in progress. I've actually been trying to figure out ways to get around that, and I
Oh, we're gonna talk about that. So great, because I think I know where you're headed. It's something again. Well, first I want to add. I agree, but I also completely see how something I realized early on that like a pencil drawing and an oil painting, there's something where just humans immediately understand that another human made it, and that's what makes it so interesting. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about because your work is on this level and it uses these techniques that don't have these visible brushstrokes, that don't have that gap where people can transplant themselves.
yeah. So that was exactly one of the reasons I started doing these anatomy series is because it's like I was kind of tired of showing breakdowns. I was like 3D, you shouldn't have to explain it. It should just be let the art be itself. So
Yeah.
allowing the medium to actually do something which is hyper realistic, but also shows the medium in the artwork itself.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. You don't need to do a breakdown of this, it's like it's obviously some kind of magic. I
Yeah,
love the choice of like almost like a stop motion reveal too. How did you do that? Just curious. Did you make an animated texture? Did you find an animated texture?
so this one I modeled every single layer and then a second UV set. So I've got my regular UV set, and then the second UV set, which has got an alpha channel as a transparency. It was basically, I think it was like drips in the water.
Yeah.
And so I downloaded a whole bunch of videos like that, made them black and white, and then I just overlaid them in DaVinci Resolve, and then just
Yeah.
made a video myself. Used the second UV set to play through it, and then I just could create the mask on each layer, and I'd use the same mask in a different part of the
Yeah.
timeline for each of the levels. This is one of those ones where I was like, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it, so I just started it anyway, and then as
Hmm.
time go, you kind of figure it out.
But that idea of like doing something that showcases the medium in an intrinsic way was part of the goal when you started.
Yeah, yeah, it was my goal, but yeah, I had no idea how I was going to go about it.
Yeah, but this one's cool. It's like wispy smoke. See, it's cool to see too that you're doing different things.
Hmm.
They're amazing and like a little bit creepy in a way too. Did some people? Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this one was about the circulatory system, how because I was like seeing body walls, seeing
Yeah, it is like that.
it's kind of like because I'm looking at portraiture, it's like really trying to understand the person. I've kind of like, well, our bodies are also what makes us who we are. It's not just our face. It's like we really go so many
Yeah.
layers deep, and it's like our
Wow.
circulatory system makes us who we are.
Dang,
Muscle.
dude, you did the likeness of her circulatory system, dude. Wow. How'd you get the reference, dude? Of her blood. That's great.
Well, it's probably not.
That's
No.
another level, dude. That's another. You have like a CT scan and stuff. You just like mapping it out perfect.
You know what? I
Uh,
actually worked for one freelance client who gave me CT scans of his entire body. He gave me
wow.
like 500 gigabytes of data of just CT scans of his brain, his heart, like everything.
Wow.
And so actually it was like I had so much information. It's kind of one of the reasons which kind of led into this style
Oh
of
yeah. Okay.
I had all that source material.
So did you do that one? Like, cause I have to think there's a difference between doing the ones with someone that you have a personal relationship with, and if someone were to hire you, I feel like it'd be a little bit more like work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this one it was a bit more work. I mean, because it was more of a client-based stuff. I mean, I enjoyed working for him, but yeah, it's not exactly what I would have done. But
Yeah.
I'm glad he hired me to do like as a point. He wanted a portrait of himself, and a woman stood next to him, and he kind of gave me a lot of freedom. So it was actually I felt like he hired me for my artwork rather than saying, "Hey, I'm going to hire you to build a digital human, which I want to be animated and all this stuff." It's like it
Yeah.
wasn't a technical thing. It was like, "I like your art, create your portrait."
Yeah, I mean this one's great, and there is like even though it is anatomy, there is a creepy thing about it. I feel like this could be at the head of like Guillermo del Toro's stairs, you know?
Yeah, a little bit. Those are one of my first ones. This is one of the ones I was playing around with, just trying to
Yeah, this is the
really,
Tetrad one, right? Is that
yeah,
how you say it?
yeah, Tetra. So basically, I was really trying to figure out how to get away from photorealism and push
Yeah,
into hyperrealism. So this is my really first attempt to like push as far as I can to hyperrealism.
and that's what was the most interesting about this one is seeing you doing things like that, experimenting, and I'm just interested in as that keeps going. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I love all your portraits, including the most recent one, which is more traditional, but these are the ones that are the most uniquely interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because these ones, it's like these are my least liked portraits, like the anatomy series and like this one especially. But what's weird is the art world actually got a hold of it. And so I've actually been in like
Mm,
two art biennials now. I'm traveling to Paris next month because these four images I just showed you, they wanted to showcase these ones. And it's like
great.
they didn't care about my portraits or how realistic my
Yeah.
images are. They were like, no, these ones are saying something different.
They are saying something again, like unique, and that's why you would want to showcase it. And that's what I mean is I feel like the other ones, it kind of takes some understanding and backstory to appreciate what's going on. Like the work is hidden behind all the similarities to other things, and we do all have like iPhones that take portrait photos now, and so it's just kind of diminished the immediate effect. Let's say we're kind of drowning in beautiful portraits. So if you don't spend the time to learn about how it's made, it's gonna be hard to appreciate like immediately.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't want to give up doing portraiture though, because the portraiture is like the human subject has been the number one subject in all of art for all of history, and so I think portraiture is still going to be around for as long as humans are around. So I don't want to give up the idea of just doing regular portraits, but I do
Yeah.
need to figure out a way how to make that engagement where it's just like, oh, like it's not just a photograph, it's something more. It's like it's a piece of artwork. So it's up to
Yeah.
me to figure that out as well. It's not just the audience being like not.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, I think these other things are so interesting in that way that they're unique in this medium. As you say, in the goal of trying to capture or portray someone's essence, traditional portrait is the way to do that. Like those other things say something else.
Hmm.
Dude, seeing the fibers on the eye, dude, wow. It gets more like maybe it's a photo, and then it's like, holy shit, what's this? That's
Yeah,
pretty cool. That's
it's like
pretty cool.
using a medium to show that it's something else.
Yeah. And I
Or
think video is going to be the main thing probably. But again, like that the latest work, Eddie, it's so great, and yeah, as I say, the other ones are great, but they say something else. They aren't conveying, as you say, that feeling of the person. And I think that's an awesome goal to have and still pursue. So yeah, I would hate if you were to ever stop doing something like that.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
like for me, it's like as long as like Eddie liked it, like if he likes it, I'm okay with that. But
I
yeah,
assume he did.
yeah, he did.
I mean, if that was me, dude, I would print this out huge, dude. Put it in my house. Be like, check that out, man. Damn.
It's funny because some people actually really dislike the portraits. I think like I'm showing some people and they're just like, "Oh, is that me?" I'm like, "Yeah," but a lot of people have this idea like they want portraits because portraits used to be as a symbol of like people got portraits done because they wanted to show off their status. Commission of painting, like oh, to show off how wealthy I am or my high level of status. And so I think from the past, it's kind of like that's moved into be like, hey, I want a portrait to show how cool I am, or if I'm like a CEO, or like what I mean, like a profile picture, which is they're proud of. But sometimes they cross the line into not being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
They're being like they're glorifying themselves, making themselves prettier than they really are, or like more well dressed than they would normally dress. And it's like that's not a true representation of who they actually are, though. And so my goal is to actually just show the everyday person of our lives as they are. And I don't want to be like start lying to everybody about who these people are.
Yeah.
So I guess to the point was like, how much do you want to flatter them, and how much do you want to be truthful?
I mean, I can definitely understand why a person wouldn't want to see themselves in like the cold light of date or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially through someone else's eyes, through your eyes and everything. I can see how that would make some people uncomfortable, especially if they do want to have a mask or whatever however you want to put it. And I think we can all relate to like seeing photos of ourselves and it's like, oh God.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's true.
I can see that.
I think my mom was the first one who actually really disliked her portrait. I did a portrait of her where I was like, I actually really liked it. So like I posed her like a queen, right? Like she's on a throne. She's got like a little ruff back in she's sat like exactly like this painting which by Van Dyke I loved.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I try to be as to show as the highest status as I can. She's like my mother. She's got to be a ultimate status, like the best high
Yeah.
quality, like everything I could put on her to make it look like royalty. I did that. But then she saw it and she was just like, I look miserable. That's not like I'm a happy person. You just make me look miserable. It's like I just don't like it. And so she couldn't see herself looking like that. And maybe I put too much of myself, of what I was assuming, into the portrait, and it was less of
Yeah.
her. So there's a bit of balance of like I gotta be more truthful to them maybe than what I would perceive them to be.
I can understand that. I mean, it'd be so hard for you to like separate yourself. You are the son doing it, and so it's almost like it's an artwork for you or from your perspective. You know?
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still a fine balance because obviously it's like the portrait is going to be about them, and I want them to like it. But like I
Yeah.
said, when we first started talking, is like the collection is about me and my journey.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're gonna follow in the tradition of some of those Renaissance painters and continue to do self portraits as you age.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
So Rembrandt did like almost 100 self-portraits in his
Yeah.
entire life, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like you can actually see his whole life of like him being young, middle-aged, like
Yeah.
just journey of who he is. So far, I've done two self-portraits, and I plan on doing like one every 5 years just to see how I
Yeah.
go.
Great. I was gonna ask if you actually had a number on it. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping every 5 years.
And what's interesting too with Rembrandt's, which I assume would be similar to you, is like you can see his style change, or he tries different things as he does them, and then as his eyesight gets worse, as he gets older, you know, he does them a little bit different, a little bit looser, or something like that. And it's cool to see.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing seeing his journey as well. Yeah, I think every artist needs to. That's what they need to focus on. Like rather than like, hey, some other artist has done this. I feel some competition that I got to outperform them, do better than them. You get really stressed out thinking about that stuff. So if you start just stepping back and be like, what's the point of my artwork? And it's just like it's my experiences, my life. What do I want to say? And you just put it out there, and it's like it's not a competition at all. So you just got to think of like
Yeah.
a positive thing like that.
This is the topic all the time when speaking to people about it. I do think the business side of art really muddied the waters in a way, and I understand, you know, why. Because obviously, you and I both are paid to do art, and I wouldn't have it another way. But you know, if money wasn't a thing, we would still be doing art in some way or another, and that's really the original drive. And I think that's where the joy lies, or you know, where your interest is. It's just if you were to do it for no other reason. I understand how people would lose sight of that, but it's so important to just keep bringing it up that like ask yourself those questions. Why are you doing it? And if something you're interested in, that should be enough reason. You know, it's almost sometimes I feel like you make these kind of trivial decisions on a whim and then they result in these huge time commitments. You know, I'm interested in your case, you know, I like learning about art history. I like portraiture, and then it just becomes so deep the well that you go, and it's just really following your curiosity and your interest one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like portraiture is something I've always loved. So it's like as went into it, it was like a rabbit hole. And it was so easy for me to just keep on going because I was doing something I loved. I see a lot of times people would like, oh, uh, this company wants to see this, so I gotta create this artwork to impress them. And it's like they don't love it, and so they do one or two pieces and not do it again.
Yeah.
So you really gotta do something you love, and that's the only way to keep on moving forward.
The way you're doing it, there's like no doubt you can do it just the long term. I thought maybe in your studying of portraiture or art history, does anything stand out to you? Like a book or a film? Is there any reference that to you made the biggest impact, or is it more of a culmination? Like, I'm just curious if you did read a book about classical artist or a book on portraiture, or maybe saw a documentary or something that of all the things made maybe the biggest impact. Or
Yeah, it's obviously been like the whole history. I got a lot of everything, but I do
yeah.
have a couple of books which I've been super inspired by. This is one of them, the Atlas of the Human Anatomy and Surgery. So it's basically
Wow. So official, dude.
yeah. So it's like basically it's got like all the amazing anatomy drawings in here. It's like one of the best artistic anatomy books is out there. But it helped me inspire me in my anatomy series.
Yeah.
I'm very inspired by photography. So this one was an amazing one by Chris Knight, so
Oh.
photographer. So it's like a lot of tutorials I take are not CG tutorials, they're actually
Mm-hmm.
photography tutorials. So I
Yeah, great.
like this. This one was an amazing one, A Face for the World.
Ooh, okay. That's cool. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, so this is more about like the philosophy and theory of portraiture, deep into like why portraits and what they mean and stuff. So like adding those three books together is like it's just a perfect combination.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good ingredient list. I love hearing you speak on some of your portraits and all the hidden meanings that are in there. Again, it reminds me of art history class where there's like, there's a green apple that represents whatever, and all this stuff, and you're like, wow,
Yeah, yeah,
I love that you put that stuff in there.
yeah. I think Erica's portrait was the one of them which had the most Easter
Yeah,
eggs. So this one was inspired by the Hans Holbein. Yeah, it's just like it's so inspired mostly by the skull here. This elongated skull. It's just like the perception of this because I think the painting was put on the wall, so you're actually walking down the staircase to the side of it, so you could actually see the skull from a
it's so
different.
crazy that they did that back then.
Oh, it's insane. But it's like I try to do it with the earring of the skull. And it's just
Yeah,
like the way for me, this is almost like a new way of seeing, and 3D is also a new way of seeing. So I kind of wanted to put that element as a new way of seeing into the portrait. So basically, this is like mathematicians and religion. So that was the biggest debate back in the day, whereas like all this stuff can be like astronomy or it could be heaven. This is earth things, and this can be death or hell, however you see it. So you got the two sides. But behind all this stuff, it doesn't matter if you believe in religion or science. It's like they have like a little cross behind the curtain. So it's like
hmm.
my life, maybe there's something more. And so my version of this, like I had the render buckets.
Oh, sick.
Uh,
I forgot about that. That's awesome.
so it's like maybe like the way we live
The
on.
CG god, the
Yeah,
CG creator. Yeah.
like we live on forever through our artwork, or we live on through our avatars, or like CGs might be the way for immortality.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love all this extra stuff. That's so that I mean, there's no other way than all the things you've learned, your experience and knowledge from art history, and then just thinking like this extra. It's so difficult already to do a likeness and a portrait of a person. This is a great example of what I think separates the stuff that you're doing is that it's and it comes with the luxury of time. I think in your temperament and like your goals too. That like letting it simmer and trying things out and not putting a deadline on it, you get this extra, just extra stuff that you just don't
Ooh.
see.
Yeah, one thing about history which I've learned a lot about, is also with photography as well, is mostly about lighting. I think lighting is commonly overlooked in how much storytelling
Mm-hmm.
you could like just by changing like lighting, you can really change how someone feels. And it's like this is like the masters have basically figured this out exactly. So you go like
Yeah,
facing the shadow, like you got type of flat lighting, which takes away storytelling. It's mostly used for like the very early pieces where like shadow wasn't really invented yet.
more two-dimensional almost.
Yeah, it's almost more two-dimensional, but it's more like this is all about like comic books and storytelling. It wasn't about the people. It's just like saying, hey, this is events of what happened, and then like you can kind of like start moving. Like this is one light moving around, which you can create some weird like make it look more like a serial killer type of thing.
Yeah, like Godfather or something.
Yeah, but like butterfly effect is usually used for like mostly women like
Mm-hmm.
paintings. It highlights the cheekbones, makes them supposed to make them look prettier, I suppose. And then like we were saying before, like the Rembrandt lighting, which
Yeah,
I look at. This is very common.
yeah,
Then you got split lighting, cutting like the shadow down the face. This is more like dramatic for like
yeah,
caricatures, more like intense, heightened sense of emotion. Like movie posters use split lighting a lot. I got like Marvel movies, they very often use split lighting.
okay.
But yeah, I've done like a whole speech just on lighting, and it's just like I learned so much from those masters that lighting can really affect your emotions. And so usually when I'm trying to do a subject, I'll actually first and foremost pick the style of lighting I want to match their personality. For like Neil Blomkamp, he was the director of District 9 and Chapping Lyceum. It's like he had to have split lighting because I wanted him feeling very engaged, like very dramatic portraits. And so I'd use the split lighting. And I felt like a flat lighting on him would really suit his personality.
I want to ask about lighting and CG. Do you have it down packed like photometrically? I'm just curious about the technical things that you're using. Are you figuring it out each time, or do you have a pretty scientific method at this point?
Not really. To be honest with you, not really, no. I know I know how one light can affect a subject. So the placement of the light, the size of the light, the intensity of the light, I'm very aware of how that light is. But when it comes to like the technicalities of like lumens and HDRIs and how those all that stuff works together, not really. Like I'm
Cool.
just, whatever works. Usually I just light a scene with one light, get it to
Mhm.
look good. And then if I need an HDRI, I might add it secondary. But sometimes some portraits I've just only had about one light.
Yeah, great. And so you're figuring out that exposure and everything by eye, right? Like you're dialing it up until you feel like you got it.
Yeah, usually, yeah. So I just create like a light like this, and just that's basically it.
Yeah.
For like so this, just have just one light.
Dude, we're seeing a rig here. That's interesting to me. How often are they rigged?
This is the first one I've actually rigged.
Oh.
I was just testing it out, see if I could actually do. I'm always about learning and trying to get to the next level. This is one point. I've already done the portrait. This is a portrait of John. I never
Yeah.
did the rig of this one. So this was actually rigged. I actually just posed him. I did clean it up afterwards, but this is basically this one. But I want to get more into like that animated portrait.
Yeah, dude. All right.
I think it's gotta happen. Like the static portraits, it's
That would be the progression. I was curious if you wanted to keep it stagnant, but it's a whole nother can of worms. But as you say, you keep growing, keep learning and stuff.
yeah, it's inevitable though. I think like doing
Yeah.
2D images with like AI coming out is just like there's not gonna be a future of just static portraits. I think it's just like motion, like video, like making things move and do things they can't do. I think that's definitely the future.
I agree. I mean, that's sort of already what we're seeing with your videos and your presentations. Oh, honestly, too, there is something about the frozen moment in time, because there is a CG-ness to that. Not again, not to make it CG, but there is a surrealism about that.
Yeah,
It excites me, dude. Because what I love is like when CG characters come to life, when that feeling, and you get that feeling in your portraits too. But when they actually move around, even just a little bit of eye movement and stuff, there's just something. There's like an extra magic, you can get with that.
you do get the extra magic, but you also get the extra criticism
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
the human subject is the most criticized of all art things because like anybody can look at a human and be like, that's wrong. Like
yeah.
if somebody's not even touched an art, like a paintbrush or a medium ever before, they'll be like, look at him like, don't like it. It's uncanny valley.
Again, like why we pray at the altar of like what you're doing, because it is still, the still images give you some, but not to take anything away, it's still amazing what you're achieving. But something, it's not my game, and I know that it's such a dedication, because a thing I tell myself is like, like the Star Wars movies, there's a couple examples where they bring CG humans in scenes with other humans, and that's by ILM. Like, they have all the resources. They're the best studio, arguably, right? I mean, it's just like you have this think tank of world experts, and still audiences can say like that looked weird, and you're just like, wow. And so it just feels like a battle that's so hard to win that it doesn't seem worth fighting all the time.
Yeah, I feel like that is, yeah, like a lot of my hesitation with animated portraits has been exactly that because I can make a still look, like I think I've proved myself I can make a still look pretty good.
Yeah.
As soon as I animate it, I know for a fact you can spend like 3 months on something and then just you get about 1% off. The whole project's dismissed because people are like it's uncanny valley.
Yeah.
But it's like it has to happen though. I have to figure it out, and I just gotta go for it. I think even if I fail, it doesn't really matter. It's like as long as I enjoy it and the subject likes it, that's what's important.
Yeah. So did you actually build the rig?
No, not this one. This one's advanced skeleton.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Great.
so it's pretty easy. I mean, I set up the bunch shapes and stuff, but it's pretty easy, user friendly. For
Cool. I always think, especially for someone like you, I always thought like the making the blend shape sculpts is like, a fun thing to do, like to be able to do. You don't get to do that a lot.
so I do photo shoots of my subjects, like the old 360, almost like a scan, but the 360. I gotta start taking photo shoots of like the facial expressions as a
Yeah,
360 as well, like different angles of what the smile would look like. But yeah,
exactly.
modeling bunch shapes is basically just modeling a new character each time. Well, I think for this one, I think I modeled over 100 blunt shapes, and like
Oh, wow.
yeah, a lot. The thing with blunt shapes is like a lot of combinations don't work very well. Like you can like
Yeah.
because you isolate them in a way, so it's like you can move the eyes without moving the cheeks, and it's like that doesn't really work in real life. And sometimes you add a sneer, which adds the bunch shape, and it's like it's additive and it
Yeah.
crashes.
And they're linear, so nowadays what they're doing with the avatar and all that stuff is like this crazy machine learning stuff that's like sliding and it's out of control. But still, like all the amazing CG characters that we saw up until a few years ago were still done this way. So yeah, obviously you can achieve amazing stuff. So yeah, looking forward to it. Curious though, would you say you're still working on this? Like, do you still want to publish it if you ever crack it? Is it kind of the thing are you on the back burner? Are you focusing on this? I'm just curious, since you posted something a while ago of the still image, where are you in the animating?
I'll probably say this one's done. Like this is more of just the learning experience for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Cool.
I feel like I need to figure out a better solution than blend shapes. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that would be. Machine learning, or I don't know, like Ziva's got a pretty decent rig which he uses.
Oh yeah, well you're working for Unity, dude. You got the Ziva hookup, dude. That's pretty good. I mean, their demo video was insane.
Yeah, it kind of goes to like because like most of this stuff I'm doing is personal work, but it's like that's the difference. Like personal work, blend shapes are accessible because most people know how to do them and create them. But if you start going to do like a Ziva rig or a machine learning, it's like the amount of data you need and the amount of it's almost like you can't access it. You can't have
Yeah.
use of that. So it's like for personal work, most people would go to something like this. And so this isn't the most believable technology out there now. So it's like, what do you do? It's like you go with what you have access to, or do you try and stray into companies like Unity, where it's like they are doing Ziva and take that work.
And that is the bleeding edge, and there always will be. But I do want to like comment that personally, one of the things that I think is so cool about what you're doing and what some artists are able to do is just, I mean, you are doing the caliber of work on your home computer, which is amazing. That's like the stuff that I was fascinated, obsessed with, and coming up. Like you're doing what studios did and still do, honestly, right? Like with hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment and cameras and scans. I love that aspect of it too, that you are doing an art form, and then at the same time you're just one guy on a computer at his house doing this thing. I think that's really cool though. It's really interesting too that technology's at a place where you can even do that, and it's
Yeah.
it's just a fun, amazing thing that you're able to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of true when you put it like that. I mean, what one person can do these days is like they have access to a lot of stuff. Like you can make it your own short film if you needed to. It just
Definitely.
really is time is the biggest issue now. Is like how long would that take you to do if you had to do every element?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of knowledge too. I mean, all the stuff you've accumulated, it's almost like someone looking at a chess table that doesn't know how to play chess. It's like that it's in there. It's in there somewhere. And that's what's kind of exciting about computers is like the tools we have access to. It's like it's just more magical now that like there is a way to do a lot of stuff that we want to do, but it's about like learning how to do it and practicing, and that's the art side of things, the thing that takes years and stuff like that. But tool wise, yeah, we just never had it better, and it just keeps getting better. I know it's interesting and cool to see you kind of in a relationship or whatever you want to say with NVIDIA, where you have access to stuff that helps you render more quickly, which obviously would be super useful in doing this stuff. Like I've done some portraits that are like realistic-ish, and I use Arnold, and I'll do for my machines, and I don't have cheap machines, but I can do I'll do a render like overnight. It could take hours. So it's a really big difference. But I think it's the whole GPU technology these days and the software that utilizes it is another big exciting thing that makes things more possible. And I assume keeps people like you like in the art of it, because it is very disconnected. Like personally myself, I just keep looking at Unreal Engine. That's what's exciting to me to play around with. I love Arnold because of the way it looks, but the trade-off is just, it hurts, to be able to do a render and you come back, as you say, you do a render, you come back, you're like, oh, that pour is off, and it's like, all right, and you got to work for a while, and then at least for me, I hit a render and then I leave or I go to sleep or something, and I check it the next day. It's a big process.
Yeah, I think technology is definitely getting things a little easier. Like that GPU stuff, it's just like a couple seconds you can get iterations. I could probably just put it on right now.
I would love to see what it's like. Yeah.
So yeah, once it's like kind of loaded, you can start like changing the skin tones and stuff and playing with the hair.
Whoa, yeah, that is pretty good.
I mean, it's a bit noisy to begin with, but like I can check out the render pretty quick, pretty fast. I could say if I want to move the light.
Wow, awesome.
So yeah, I can really test out like what the perfect lighting is and
What do you do for like a reference render? Do you do that? Do you, once a night or a couple times a day? Is there a different process for creating something that's more similar to a final image so you can look at, more detail, or do you just let it resolve?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, so this is the GPU stuff, and then V-Ray's got like this frame buffer where you can do like A/B comparisons. So I'll render out a good version of
Oh,
the GPU rendering, and then once I'm ready for another iteration, I'll render out another high quality one, and I can just do A/B comparisons.
yeah, that's great, man. I've never used V-Ray before.
For me, it's like I use it just because I know how to use it. It's just a cool and comfortable with, and it gives me the results I like. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
against Arnold. I think Arnold's pretty fantastic, but I've used V-Ray a lot more, and usually
Yeah.
V-Ray they sometimes fly me out to give talks at the conferences, so
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I'm like they kind of support me. So I'm kind of
Yeah,
just
that's great. Maybe a silly question, but do you see yourself continuing with realism, quote unquote, all the time, or hyperrealism? Like,
I mean, I think I'll always go to hyperrealism. I think hyperrealism is my jam.
yeah,
But yeah, like I don't think I'll ever go to like cartoons or stylized caricatures. Like I don't think it's really. I mean, it takes another skill to do all that stuff, which it'll take me. I feel like it'll take me years to learn how to get to that point. But I feel like the track I'm on is like I'm just in that rabbit tunnel. And it's like I just actually want to go further and deeper to see how far I can push and how far it goes.
great.
So I'm actually
Yes.
more excited to do hyperrealism than anything else right now.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Do you have something at the forefront of your mind, or your goals that you want to try to progress? Is there an element? We spoke about lighting. Have you got a grasp on that? Is there any element in the portraits that you do that? I mean, we talk about animation too. That would be one. But I
Mhm.
wonder if there's anything else, especially in the still lifes, like if there's something you think there's room to improve or that you would focus on a little bit more.
Well, I think like as for like if we're going to photorealism, there's still like a lot of things photorealistic I can improve on. Skin details and like specular breakup, pore details can be better. The eye shaders can always be better. It's just like more resolution obviously could be better. Like I can think I can improve on all levels and all aspects of things.
Okay.
It's funny because it's like we looked at portraits I did from 5 years ago, which at the time people were saying, "Wow, that's so unbelievable! I can't tell if it's a photo or not." You can look at them now and then you're like, "No, that's obviously CG." We've all trained
Yeah.
our eyes to actually know, like we've all got better as technology's got better, and so even like in 5 years from now, you might look at this and then you might be like, "You know what? I can tell that's CG. It's because it's so
I
obvious."
don't know. I don't know about that one. Even the one you showed, I think it's fascinating that you see it that way. I will say though, the one at the top there, the guy with the tattoos. Yeah, there is something that this one, again, to say it looks CG, I feel like that's a disservice. But there is an idealistic, might not even be the right word, but there's something a little perfect about it, and I like that. There's we spoke about before, like being able to see brushstrokes. I don't necessarily see brushstrokes, but it feels like something different, and I do like that about it.
But yeah, I think definitely like for myself, I can easily for maybe 4 portraits, 5 portraits, I can see an improvement from like
Mm-hmm.
thinking like I did one time I thought this was like my absolute best, like best I could do. But now I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, there's so many more things I can improve on.
Oh wow, cool.
The skin details here, just like there's a lot of the eyebrows, like forehead, like the how the shadow blends. There should be a bit more noise, specular breakup. Like I can things just like pop out.
Great, great. That's
Like,
great to hear.
yeah, and
What
also
about one of the ones that started to make me feel like it was on another level is the Gina that's holding up her hand blocking the sun. I think it's probably the lighting and the hair. I mean, but again, her skin, her expression, I mean everything about it, but this was cool, and it seems like an inspired kind of image because it's a little bit unconventional, at least to me, the like lighting.
yeah, I feel like this one's more of like a timeless piece. Like a lot of when you focus on being like, hey, look, I'm trying to make a technical skin pose look good, good skin shader. When you focus on that stuff, it becomes a technical study, and as soon as it becomes a technical study, it'll be dated.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So work like this one, especially for Gina, is like I really was trying to avoid any sort of technical study. So like in 20 years, 30 years, you could still look back and be like, oh, that's a cool picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like so trying to hide the technology in it sometimes is the best way to go. Because yeah, you
Yeah.
can't really see much of poor details or details in the shirt or anything, but it's like it's
Mhm.
all about composition and light and compose. Yeah, people complain because she's got a reflection in her eye, even though she's got a shadow, but there's actually the sunlight. And then I had like a so when I do photo shoots, I got this like light wand, which I shine. And
Oh,
so
cool.
I got her like to do a whole bunch of different poses, and I actually just shine the light onto her eyes to get that speculum in her eyeballs.
I mean, people are always looking for that. I feel like in your work, it's kind of I would again I haven't like read your comments. I can imagine people are in the comments like for sport trying to find some chink in the armor. Being like, I don't know about this. It's like, okay, dude.
Yeah. I think I get at least like 2 or 3 comments like that on every single portrait I do. Doesn't matter what it is. It's always like,
Yeah.
no.
It's just to make them feel better, you know. They're like, hey, I know something, guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're better than me.
Yeah. Not to mention, I would have never cared about the eyes. Like, I'm a lot of my, maybe all of my inspiration and motivating things comes from movies and like even photography in that world that is more dramatic and idealized and as you say, hyper realistic. So I'm fully aware that in movies, like they're changing the lighting setup every shot. They're always trying to get something to catch in the eyes. So I'm always trying to do that stuff too. I wouldn't. The idea of like thinking everything has to make physical sense and she needs to only be lit by the sun. I think that's not even the right motivation. That would be silly
Yeah, I
to
agree.
even do.
Especially in portraiture, because the eyes are the most important thing. So you really want to bring your attention to them. But having her covering her eyeballs, like, don't look at my eyes, but you want to look at the eyes. And it's like by adding a little specular highlight, it actually just does bring your eyes.
It does. It does. Yeah, great. But now that you mention it, it's another thing that just makes it super interesting. I go straight to her eyes, even though it's underexposed, and it even evokes something about her personality. There's like a not caringness
Hmm.
about it, and I think that goes for the picture also. To like, it feels like it's not staged as much because it's in this particular pose, and it lets her face be kind of relaxed and also semi frowning and everything. So I don't know. It's really cool. That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been going for a little bit, so I do want to just say thank you again for your time and being able to chat with you. Obviously, people can go to ianspriggs.com to go look at your stuff, and you have a book, and you've mentioned a couple of times the talks that you've done,
Hmm.
which are so great. I think that's so awesome that you do that and you volunteer your time like you are right now to talk about it. And like, I really feel that you want to spread like the good, positive thing about this, share how it's been important to you, and motivate other people to do that stuff and share your information, which is I think just so great to do. But is there anything else other than people just going to check out your website that you'd like people to check out, or anything coming up?
No, not really. I don't think. Uh, yeah, nothing in particular.
You mentioned a talk. Are you going to Paris or something? What's that for?
I've got an art show in Paris, the Art Biennial Nemo. Basically they like all the anatomy stuff and the textured head,
Yeah.
the weird ones, like the weird ones. So I'm gonna go to Paris for that exhibit and just tour around a little bit.
Well, cool. All right. Well, yeah. So go check out ianspriggs.com. Check out his artwork and some of the ones that we've seen here. He does have a book that you can pick up in even more detail. And yeah, thank you again for your time, dude.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Peace out, everybody.